Let's face it, Carnival has a little bit of a challenge with the behavior of some of its passengers, and over the last few months, they've been working hard to correct that behavior. Will their efforts work? That is a question that I had in a conversation that I had with cruise commentator Tommy Casabona. Tommy Casabona, the host of the Always Be Booked Cruise podcast. Let me share with you a little excerpt from the latest edition of the La Lita Loca Cruise podcast, where Tommy and I chop it up. We chop up specifically what Carnival is doing to address bad behavior and whether or not we think it will work. I hope you enjoyed this conversation.
It's interesting to me because I see the way that change comes forth from the cruise lines as almost a way of conditioning their guests to prepare their guests for certain expectations, set the expectation. We had another experience with that this past week where we got the Christine Duffy video, which I feel like was exactly the set the expectation for the guest type activity. And, we followed it, you followed it, all of the misdeeds that seem to link back to Carnival cruises over the last few months, particularly around fighting. And then, of course, there's a ton of commentary out there about how much Carnival cruise ships smell like weed. And so I think that video is a direct response to that. When you watch that video, did you feel scolded, or did you feel like this is just something they had to do so that they can set the tone going forward?
A little of both. I definitely saw there was a tone when she uses terms like, and in case there's any confusion, you know what I mean? Things like that, little types of things where she's like, basically, unless maybe you're not listening. Here's the deal. So like, I definitely felt like she was trying to be authoritative. I don't think it was a total miss. I think they just have to get more strategic when it comes to security. You know what I mean? And I also don't think just throwing 10 more security guards at the problem is the issue. In my background, in my business, my experience, I always know that that's the one thing. If a issue breaks out, if a conflict starts and it gets physical, it's a little bit too late at that point. Of course, there are people that are better than others at breaking it up, but the idea is, to prevent. The idea is to de-escalate. The idea is to make it so that people just are not in a comfortable position to feel like they could start a brawl. It just, it's a lot of things that go into it. But, one of them isn't necessarily just putting 10 more people on. You know what I mean? Security people a lot of times feel like they have to earn money that's coming to them. So a lot of times, and I'm not saying all of them, but some of them have that feeling like when a fight breaks out or something, oh, it's go time. This is my time to shine. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that type of mentality, you have to have a de-escalation mentality. So I think what she said was important. I'm okay with all the stuff. I'm okay with all that stuff. I understand Carnival is a discount cruise line. When you have your prices that, at least for the most part, are lower than every other cruise line, it's going to get a little wild. It's going to happen. So you have to take some measures to prevent it. I think you'll see it more on the older ships. And like you said, the whole theme being comparing the older ships to the newer ships. I think you'll see it more on the older ships than you will on the newer ships, just because of mentality. The broken windows theory. When things seem to be more well-maintained, people are less apt to kind of get out of pocket a little bit. Whereas the older ships, they kind of invite that type of mentality. Hey, look, the whole ship looks like a nightclub, Let's get it going. And what happens in nightclubs at around 2 a.m.?
Yeah, that's the thing. As you were talking there, that's the thing I was thinking about. It's like, how do you de-escalate in all those places? We've seen fights on the pool deck, right? We've seen fights at the nightclub. We've seen fights in the corridors. It's like, and the question that I asked when I was talking about it when the announcement came out was, there was no hard message in there about alcohol, and how much of the fighting do you think could be attributed to alcohol? And so I wonder if that data really exists out there. Like for every fight, were they going, okay, well, this person was obviously intoxicated, or if this was just an aggressive person kind of thing. And it's so funny because somebody asked me the other day in a comment on one of the videos, are there any cruise ships out there without alcohol? And the answer to me is no. Like I don't know of any cruise ships that don't have a bar or sell alcohol. And so to me, there's such a relationship between cruising and alcohol. Not everybody partakes, but it is a place where a lot of drinking can happen. Do you think that, at the end of the day, how is this really going to impact customers? Like, you got this video out there, you've got all the language in the cruise contract, you've got the code of conduct. This actually gives the cruise line some teeth to ban somebody or to, restrain somebody, to put them off the cruise ship. At least they probably prevent themselves from being sued for doing those things. Now that this is, a lot of times in business, you've got to have something documented before you write somebody up or before you take action against somebody. To me, I saw that as a little bit of that. But do you think there's any deterrent out there? Like, is there going to have to be some major news stories where, some person gets banned from cruising? Maybe this will be a deterrent. Or again, it's a tough problem to tackle, because they do, the Carnival values their guest. Every cruise line values their guest. And so it's, you don't want to push anybody away, but at the same time, you've got to get the behavior that you need so that everybody feels safe on a cruise ship.
I think what she did was effective. I think what the cruise line did was effective. Is it going to be the end all and be all of solutions? Absolutely not. But I do think that, they saw a problem. They're addressing the problem, and they're going to try, because ultimately this is going to hurt them. They are a party cruise line, but they're more a family cruise line. And when those families who are really, putting a major portion of what their revenue is, when they start complaining and start dropping off, that's no good. So clearly, the other thing, and it's not just the safety, it's also the just flat out enjoyment. Of course, things get wild on Carnival at night, and a lot of people bring those speakers on board. And yes, I like to bring a speaker on board too. I try not to, crank the volume too loud, but I will say that will probably, cause a lot, those late night parties where people have a little bit of a block of the ship kind of portioned off, and then they're going from room to room, and the speakers are blaring and the weed is going, and then you have a family of 6 that are right across the hall. Those shutting down those speakers will be a big thing too. The drug sniffing dogs, the speakers. It's a shame that you have to go this route, but you do, and they're doing it. So I have no problem with it. The whole, what do you think of the whole shack angle?
I'm pretty sure that the shack angle, and I poked fun at it a little bit. I think the shack angle was really just to make a connection to kids. I think that was the big deal. Like, Shaq saying, be good kids. And I think Shaq's a good role model for that kind of thing. It's almost a little bit like Thunderstruck. It's like, really, what kind of marketing are we wrapping around this? Maybe it was to add some levity to that message. Like, hey, they were being a little scolding, like, hey, we're going to sniff for your drugs and we're going to shut you down if you're out of line. But don't you love Shaq? So, I think maybe it was to add a little levity, but if taken too seriously, it's like, really, Shaq's gonna, unless you actually put Shaq out there working security, I don't think it's going to be that effective.
Yeah, I just thought it was a little bit of a miss too, as far as just assuming that, Shaq is going to be like the voice of, 19. Shaq is our age. Shaq is more our generation. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Shaq is a law enforcement guy too. He's been an actual sheriff, and honorary or not, he's big into law enforcement. Comes from a law enforcement family, a military family, so he's a disciplined guy.
Yeah.
So that wasn't necessarily, Shaq, it's cool to be quiet at night because Shaq says so. I don't know. I don't know if that landed, but I think the whole campaign in general is effective and necessary.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see if it cuts down. And the other thing is, the world that we live in, somebody sneezes funny and it's on the internet. So, it's really, Carnival is really easy to pick on. A lot of stuff happens on Carnival, but, it's interesting. I've seen aggressive people on other cruise lines also that maybe not get the same notoriety that Carnival does. So, of course, they're going to do what they need to do to take care of their business.
There you go. It's still pretty open-ended. Do you think these things that Carnival is doing, do you think it will make a difference when it comes to bad behavior by their guests, or do you think it's a lost cause? That would be an interesting conversation to have in the comments. Big thanks again for Tommy taking the time to talk to me. If you want to hear the full conversation between Tommy and I, where we cover a lot of different cruising topics, go check out the latest episode of the La Vida Loca Cruise Podcast. Thanks so much for checking out this video. If you'd like to, please subscribe, hit the like button. This is Tony for La Vida Loca, and until the next time, we'll see you on the Lido.